Okay, and with that, welcome. Thank you very much for bringing us through this crash course in design thinking. Our host is Brian Tarallo.
Yeah, you got it. That's amazing.
And our co-host is it Nile or Nile? How do we pronounce your name?
It's Nile.
Nile. All right. So thank you, gentlemen. Take it away. Looking forward to learning.
Awesome. So we're just going to jump right in. Nile, do you want to talk a little bit about Pathspace and then I'll cue it up?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the idea for us to sort of build it was just, whiteboards are great and, they have sort of this infinite possibilities, but they can be also confusing and complicated and can be a mess at the end. So we wanted to build something that was just a little bit more streamlined, something that's easier to use. And so we started with just brainstorming and, yeah, I think the best way to kind of understand it is to use it. And yeah.
All right, well, let's jump into it then. So we're going to do a kind of a classic divergent, convergent. We're going to brainstorm ideas and then we're going to come together on those ideas. And like Nile said, we're just going to jump into it. So first, I'm going to paste a link into chat. And then just so that the video has something kind of interesting to capture, I'm going to put what's happening on my screen behind me right here. Okay, just so that the recording's got something interesting to take a look at. Now, go ahead and click on that link, and you can sign in if you want to, but you don't need to, so go ahead and jump in. We're going to start with my favorite mock brainstorming question, which is, where should we go eat lunch? So as soon as you're in here, all you got to do is click on the sticky note and start typing ideas. Okay, so we'll spend just a minute and type out exactly like, where might you want to go eat lunch? If we were going to go eat lunch together, where would we go? Okay. Don't overthink this one. Just give us some options for lunch. Now, if you've got a critical mass of ideas in here, by the way, your ideas will pop up right here next to it. If you've got a critical mass, there's this button that pops up that says Generate AI Suggestions. So if you click on that, AI will actually say, well, hey, it sounds like you're asking or you're giving ideas that are in this line of thinking. Here's some more that you could add to it. And again, if you're just joining us, you're in the right place. We've already got started. I'm dropping a link into Zoom chat. All you got to do is click on that link and you can help us decide collectively, where is it we're going to go have lunch. Try to get up to like 6, 7, maybe 8 ideas. Just so we've got a good critical mass to play with.
The AI suggestions crack me up.
They're pretty funny. It's even more funny when they're wrong,
Mm-hmm. So anchoring us in design thinking, how does brainstorming ideas for lunch relate to design thinking?
So what we want to do is we'll just use this as a demo, right? And then we'll go into something that's a little bit more design thinking, but we want to give you a lens on exactly how this tool works first, and then we'll do something. Okay. All right, cool. I'll give you just another, let's see, I'll use the timer on here. I'll give you just another 15 seconds to finish up your ideas, and then we'll move on. Okay, here we go. So let's take just a minute and draw out some information. And what I mean by that is first read through them. And if there are any, first of all, if there's any duplicates, go ahead and call them out, let me know. And if there's anything that you don't know what it is, right? If there's something that requires a little bit more explanation, just feel free to go off mute and ask the question. So something on here, you don't know what it is, go ahead and ask the question. See that we've got Chipotle on there a couple times. McDonald's is on a couple of times. Anything on here you don't know what it is requires a little further explanation.
Man, I don't know what Carson's is, but I trust that it's an amazing place that somebody knows.
So what's Carson's? If Carson's was yours, I'm going to invite you to go off mute and just talk a little bit about it. What is Carson's?
Carson's is one of the most amazing restaurants in Lexington, Kentucky. Just a super popular, but great atmosphere, amazing food.
Cool. What do you like about it?
Really just that. The atmosphere and the layout and design is really, really good. You can, music is good, but it's not so loud that you have to shout at people over it. And the food is amazing.
Nice. Thank you. So Lee, to what extent does that answer your question about Carson's? Good?
Yes, it makes me want to move away from Washington, D.C.
I know. I want to go check.
And what is, so Brian, quick question. So, I mean, this is kind of also me playing to the design thinking, but what do you usually do when there are sort of answers in there that are like, do you edit them? Like, so for example, we're going to Sizzler. Do you make that Sizzler or do you just keep it?
Well, so you're about to hear from a lot of different facilitators and what their preference is. Mine is to leave it. Number one, it's less work for me. Number two, I want to make sure that I'm not misinterpreting somebody's intent there, but what do others say? Elise is giving me the thumbs up.
Cool.
Okay, anything else on here? All right, let's move on. So any categories immediately stand out. Now the AI decided to help us out a little bit, and one category is fast. We can keep that if we want to. Another one is Mexican. We can keep that if we want to, but are there any categories that stand out? And by the way, you can help me out here. So if you see something in the ideas on the right that belongs in one of the categories on the left, just go ahead and drag it over. I don't need to be a bottleneck to this. Any, you like these themes? Yeah, so Taco Bell, KFC, very good.
I mean, I would say there are places, and then there are like actual foods, right? Like PB&J is different than, or Paris is different than, McDonald's or something, right?
Okay, so I heard you say like places.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, there's restaurants, and then I think like Paris is different than, Starbucks, and then I think like roti and PB&J are actual foods as opposed to like places, right?
Okay, so I heard you say that like Paris might be a place.
Yeah.
By the way, anybody can create a theme in a category if they want.
And then there's also like just like a broader sense of like barbecue, pub, deli. I don't know what, it's more like
Any ideas for that one?
type cuisine or something like that.
Any ideas for those? Somebody dropped in comfort food, new group. Somewhere we can sit down. Okay, so way to model. If one of these categories suggests an idea to you that we don't already have, feel free to go ahead and add a new idea. Okay? We don't have to stop the brainstorming now just because we're into categorizing. Okay, I'll give it just another couple of seconds. Hi, Lisa. Somebody created a category, actual food, as opposed to something else. I wonder what the something else is. All right, cool. Now that we've got these, are there any other ideas? So we've created some buckets, and some of these buckets are pretty empty. Is there anything else that would go into some of these categories? You can either speak to it, or you can just click where it says add an idea. And Lisa, if you're just joining, you can go ahead and click on the link that I just dropped into chat. We're doing a little bit of affinity clusters or theming.
I was the Carson's lady.
Oh, cool. For some reason, I thought I saw you like leave and then come back, but it's cool.
Cell phone. Had to,
that's what it is.
long meeting. Sorry about that.
Perfectly okay. Okay. Yeah, again, this is just for demonstration purposes. I'm going to go ahead and move on. And I think what I'd like to do with this one is to do a multiple dot vote with this. And so everybody who's a part of this has got 10 votes. And just in case you've never heard of a dot vote, let me just show you. These are dots. And so if we were in the room together, what we'd do is we'd have a whole bunch of sticky notes in front of us, and I'd give everybody a strip of these things and say, okay, Here's how we're going to do this. Let's say you really want to go to Taco Bell. Like you are not going to be able to sleep at night unless you go to Taco Bell. You can take all 10 of your dots and go bam, 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 and put them all up on Taco Bell. And Taco Bell gets 10 votes. If on the other hand, you want to spread the love a little bit and you could like, I could go to Taco Bell. I could also go to McDonald's. 5 of your votes could go to Taco Bell and 5 of your votes could go to McDonald's. So this is a weighted dot vote. Okay. So go ahead and take just a minute. And it's pretty self-explanatory, but go ahead and vote for your options. It'll tell you when, how many votes you've got left. And we'll see where we stand. Okay, it looks like 3 people are done. Still waiting for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people to finish up their votes. And let me just remind you, this is for demonstration purposes only. We are not going to actually go out to lunch together. This is a low stakes decision-making process.
Very disappointed.
I mean, I'm kind of thinking Carson's is a good idea, but you know, let's see how this goes.
I am getting hungry.
It's coming up on dinner time where I am. Okay, Anonymous Broccoli, you have 1 more vote left. Double check and make sure you don't have a vote that's just hanging on there. I'll give you just a couple more seconds. All right, there we go. Done, and let's see how it stands. Here we go. Look at that. Number 1 with 13 vote is Carson's. How about that? After that, it's a pub, a casual restaurant. Oh, let me get out of the way. It's a casual restaurant. And then with 8 votes, it's my mom's house. Hopefully not my mother's cooking. If that was your mom, let us know. We're showing up. Yeah. Okay, so that was just a very quick and dirty demo of this. I'll just share, since I'm sharing my screen right now. What's one of the things that's really cool about this is that I can now export this as either a PDF or as a comma-spaced values, an Excel spreadsheet, and download all of the results of this. I'll show you what it looks like. Yeah.
You can also copy it all to the clipboard and then just put it in the chat. So there it is.
So it's not locked in this format. Okay. So before we pivot a little bit and try to apply this to some design thinking, I'm wondering what questions are popping up for you, comments, feedback. Where have you seen something like this before, and anything would be helpful? And if you've got something, just feel free to go off mute, and Nalay or I will call on you.
So I am curious about, so when you think about the group ownership and whatnot, the AI-based suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that. What's the thinking behind it, and where is it a good thing, and where is it maybe a challenge?
Yeah, I think I can take this one.
Sure.
Well, one, it's just I think we added it partly because it's cool and it's just fun, and I think you know, I think a lot of tools need that at times, and so yeah, I think, like, you know, there's just been a lot of recent developments in sort of AI, and so we're plugging into some of those things, and it's pretty good at the suggestions. If it doesn't get them right the first time, you hit regenerate, and it does a good job. Like the more data you give it and the more you hit regenerate, like it'll do a better job. And then also it learns from, like, if you hit accept on a couple of ideas, it understands that, oh, these are some of the ideas that I find it helpful, like if you're actually doing it in an actual setting. So we use this tool a lot internally for our own process planning. It actually comes up with like decent ideas. You know, sometimes it's like it makes you think in a different way. Maybe the idea itself isn't good, but it just gives you a suggestion and makes you think, oh, like I didn't think about it that, you know, and yeah, and so it's pretty good, I think. Yeah. Yeah, and it's also just fun, and yeah.
So Elise, how well does it answer your question?
That answers my question.
Okay, cool. Jamie, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go for it.
Oh my goodness, that's my life. I can only learn how to talk on these things. So I was just curious. I have done a little bit with the mural boards,
Mm-hmm.
and I find this pretty intuitive. you know, like without taking a lot of classes or whatever, I can fumble around and figure it out. How easy is it to just get on these and create different things?
Yeah. Let me actually, before I'll answer that one, but before I do, I have to do a little bit of a disclosure. So I'm on the mural payroll, more or less. I'm what's called a mural playmaker, and so they send me a lot of work. Okay, so I just want to be upfront about that. I will tell you that the difference between a tool like this and Mural is that I find that this has a much shorter learning curve. So without the endless canvas of Mural, which is phenomenal if you want to recreate a sticky note activity, but do it virtually. If your goal is really just to brainstorm ideas, categorize those ideas, and then come together to make a decision, I think Mural can be sometimes it's a little overkill, right? And it can be a little bit off-putting to our less tech-savvy participants who get overwhelmed by the amount of options and having to learn something new. So the goal here is to try to create something that's a little bit more intuitive. Jamie, how well does that? Go ahead, Nilay.
Yeah, and one thing to just add, I think this is a good example of it. Is like we didn't really introduce you to the tool. You know, most facilitators spend like 5 to 10 minutes. You know, like here's how to create a sticky, and where do I go, and like can you follow me? And there's all the stuff that you teach, and like literally, I don't think anyone here has used this tool before, and you know, we made a decision to go to Carson's, you know, and so it's really quick. And, you know, I think the whole process took us about like 10 minutes right now. If we change that to a real question, you know, we find that it takes about that much also, like 15, 20 minutes. Obviously, it's as long as you want it to be, but Brian has some experience using it in like actual facilitated settings.
Yeah, I did it. Actually, I did it in a strategic planning offsite, and I had allotted 45 minutes for this. Their goal was to come up with, I was using a variation of a Grove tool called the 5 Bold Steps. And where all they had to do was to decide on what are your top 5 initiatives that you want to focus on for the next 3 years. I had allotted 45 minutes for it, including discussion, and they were able to get the whole thing done in 15 minutes. And I don't think any process was sacrificed over the course of it. It's just because it just flowed. And then once we had it, I was actually surprised. I said, "Is this it?" You know, and they said, "Yeah, we're good with this decision. Let's move on."
That's awesome. So yes, and I feel like jumping into it as a participant, it was very easy. So my curiosity is to then create the boards that you had that I viewed.
Right.
How difficult that.
I'm glad you asked, because I actually want to pivot it into a new question, a real one, if that's okay. Okay. And I'm just gonna, let me pull up my screen again. I'll say, let me get out of the way of my screen, and I'm just gonna go to Pathspace. Okay.
Brian,
So
do you
there
want
it
to
is.
show your screen? Maybe it's like on the.
Oh, that's a good idea.
It's a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Can you see that okay? So I'm here. And by the way, for now anyway, it's free to use this thing. We're still getting feedback on it. And I'm just gonna, so they have some prompts in here already. You can, and here's the one that's where should we eat, right? But I'm gonna do one that's a little bit more, well, partial to our space. I'm gonna say, what are the obstacles facing effective meetings, okay? And I'm gonna hit start brainstorming. I'm gonna invite participants and copy the link. And then the last thing I gotta do is drop that into chat. Now, if you don't mind, go ahead and let's do this one for real. Okay. Now this one, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because you should be seeing the same thing that I am.
Yeah, and also just to go back to answering the question, which is like it's really that easy.
That was it. That's the entire.
Type in the prompt, and the process is there. Now, what we're working on next is like to customize that process. And let's say you don't want to categorize, you just want to come up with ideas and then just vote, or you don't want to vote, or you know, whatever. You can customize the process. I think a good way to think about it is like if you've ever had those facilitator like cards. You know, the Loom Institute has a bunch of cards and tactics, and so we think of it as like you're putting your tactics together, and then it just kind of flows from one tactic to the next, as opposed to this infinite board where you have to set it up and things like that. Whereas in our thing is like you just say, I want these tactics, and we'll set it up for you automatically. And so that just makes it really easy for all of you also.
So this is where we're gonna scratch the surface, Elise, on that design thinking thing. Beginning, let's identify a challenge that we can work on. Okay. So thinking about some of the challenges, the obstacles that either you have been facing lately or your clients have been been serving up. Either they're reporting them or they're creating them. So what are some of those obstacles facing effective meetings? Lee, I know you got like dozens of these.
This is like the worst like question you could ask me. This is the thing I'll just talk about. Lisa and I just talk about this like all day. We just complain. It's amazing.
Well, no, let's put it to use.
Well, and then so in terms of anchoring it in like design thinking theory in, backing up this surfacing of the problem, right? So if you look at design thinking, they often draw it as a couple of different diamonds, right? And one of the diamonds is getting all of the ideas out. And the first diamond, you get all the ideas about the problem out. So this is a great example of that.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
I'm
going to give you just about another 30 seconds to come up with some ideas. What are the obstacles facing effective meetings? Okay, that's time. Let's see how we did. Oh, I forgot to use the AI suggestions. Let's see if they're any good. Actually, that's pretty cool. Okay. So take a minute and read through these. I think I have a feeling by the way, this is completely anonymous, and I have a feeling I know who wrote some of these things. Scan through this, and first let me know if there are any duplicates. And when I'm talking about duplicates, I'm talking about like identical twins. Okay. So if I had, for example, eyeglasses and spectacles, those would be identical twins. But if I had eyeglasses and contact lenses, those are a little different. Okay. So is there anything on here that you don't understand, that you need a little bit more context around? Go ahead and scan through this. Make sure you have a good working knowledge of what's here. I'll give you just a minute or two to do that.
I think it's fun that some of these point out like the conflicts, right? Not adhering to the time, being too focused on the time are the opposite sides of the same problem.
Yeah.
I think one of them here is like have a meeting. So is that the problem? Having a meeting agenda, or is it not having them? I'm a little confused about that one.
Okay, I'm not hearing a whole lot of questions pop up. Let's go ahead and move on to the next. Are there any categories that suggest themselves? We were going to cluster these. Would we find any similarities there? By the way, just because an idea winds up in one category doesn't mean that it can't also show up in the other one. You just have to copy the text and add a new idea. At least I think I found those diamonds you were talking about. Is that like this one? Super. Yeah. So the idea is go ahead.
Yeah. So that's the UK Design Council's expression of design thinking. It's one of the more popular ways to envision that. What the divergence is where you get more of, right? Like they diverge, you get more ideas, and then you get, if you let them work together, emergence. So what happens when you compare all those ideas together, which is where we're at now. And then ideally, after these categories and these themes emerge, then we can converge, which is where we vote on Carson's for lunch. What do they have at Carson's? Because I'm super hungry and I'm at my mom's house and I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to cook. So.
Nice. Thanks for that. Let me just add to that. So one of the things that I found is that when you really kind of squint at the design thinking frameworks that are out there, they're all kind of saying the same thing. They're all pretty much the same. But they're all equally good. Okay, it looks like most of these are categorized. The one that didn't get categorized is COVID safety in person, which is fine. Not everything needs to get a category, but let's see where it stands. Now let me pose it to you this way. Assuming, and I know some of you have to leave. Lee, I think you were actually late. You had to head out, right? So assuming that we were going to spend the rest of our time together brainstorming solutions around one of these obstacles, what would be the most valuable one for you to brainstorm on? Now, in this case, I'm going to do the voting a little bit differently. Rather than doing a weighted dot vote, I'm just going to give you one. You can only vote on one idea, 1 dot per idea. Let me say it that way. Okay. And so what that means is that you have to be a little bit more global. So spread out. Where might you want to spend your time? And I think we've got 8 votes for this one. If we were going to solution around one of these ideas, what would be the one to really focus on?
I think there's a bunch of duplicates in the participants.
Yeah. So now, like, question for you then, what do we do about that? Can we go back and combine those?
We have to go back, but then we'll have to vote again. So it's up to you.
Worth it. Let's go ahead and no. Elise is like, nah, it's not worth it. You're shaking your head now. Don't do it. All right, we're not going to do it. If we wanted to, and this happens sometimes, as you get into it and you realize, wait a minute, there's some overlap, you can rewind the process back. Just to keep it moving, we're not going to do that. Okay, and one more vote. Come on, Anonymous Pretzel, you can do it. Yay, okay, we're done. All right, looks like number 1, so we got a tie for number 1. We've got non-trained meeting leaders, and then being unclear about decisions. Unclear about decisions. Okay, cool. Comments, questions before we move on? Because I want to do one more of these things. Any input, feedback for Nilay or I? Happy to get some facilitation feedback too. This isn't just about the technology. All right, let's do one more. Now, if I was being fair about it, I'm not. If we're being fair about it, we would decide between those two, but I'm just going to pick one. So what solutions might work for being unclear about decisions? Oops. What solutions unclear about decisions? No problems if you've got to leave. We're recording this. Thank you for hanging out as long as you could. Okay, so I'm going to copy another link. We'll do one more of these. I'm going to drop it in. I'm sorry, Elise, did you have something coming up? Thought I saw you raise your hand. Okay. So I just dropped one more, last one more of these into Zoom chat. So what solutions might work for being unclear about decisions? How might we deal with that?
Is there anyone who came up with that idea in the first one who'd be willing to share like an example of a decision that, you know, that they were in a process and there was a unclear sort of decision being made or people not being clear, just to give people more context? Or maybe person left.
That one wasn't me, but I've definitely been in that situation where, one person says, okay, we'll do this in the meeting. And then another person says, it's kind of maybe not applicable, but, oh no, don't really do what they said. We're actually going to do blah, 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 as soon as they leave the room. So like, whose decision are we following? And are any of us actually part of that decision?
I love that, Lainey. That's sort of the meeting after the meeting. It's like there's the meeting that you sit there for, and then you go out into the hall and you have a completely different discussion. In the lay, I was actually thinking that there's no way the AI is going to come up with some good solutions for that, but it came up with some really great ideas for the, like come up with a decision tree. It's like, yeah, that's actually really great.
Oh, I got one that is eliminate the meeting.
That's a good one. Does this have to be a meeting? All right, just a couple more seconds to finish up your thoughts.
Yeah, earlier it told me that's a stupid question.
It actually said that?
Yes.
Wow. If they keep we're just like a step away from like Skynet and the Terminator when it starts, when the AI starts judging us like that.
Did you see the news about like Facebook's new
Yes.
AI?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for anybody who didn't see it, Facebook has a new AI chatbot, and they asked the AI chatbot what it thought about Mark Zuckerberg, and its replies were not flattering. So it's worth looking up. It's fun.
Okay, let's take a look at these, and again, just kind of quietly read through. Okay, who's got the D? If that was yours, I'm not sure what that one is. Can you tell me what that?
That's a process where when you walk into, if you've got an organization where you use consult-based decision making, where one person in the room has the authority to make the decision. You walk into the meeting and they ask who's got the D, and you know, okay, I'm making the decision in this room, and therefore everybody knows their role.
That's really cool. How about decision expiry and review? What is expiry?
Expiration.
Got it. Oh, okay, now, if I'm saying this word wrong, Kinefin and other complex thinking models. Did I say that right?
Cynefin?
Kinefin.
Yeah. It's Welsh. It's like a weirdo word.
It is.
Yeah.
Mostly, I just wanted to see if I was pronouncing it right. That's the one with sort of like a diagnostic of how like complex this problem is.
Right. So it's got like swirly things that kind of run into each other. And the idea is that if it's depending on what kind of a situation you're in, you may need a decision, but you might actually need multiple decisions and experiments so that you can find your way out of the situation.
Thank you. Anything else that's unclear on being unclear about decisions? Anything else that needs a little bit more information before we move on? All right, now I think that there's a lot of overlap here. One of them, just as an example, I saw a decision log and then decision logging. One thing that we can do is actually merge these, okay? So if you see two that are really, really similar to each other, you can actually drag and drop them onto each other. They become one idea, okay? So we've got a lot of these categorized. Are there any that can be grouped together? Is a decision matrix the same thing, or is it related to a cascading messages framework or a decision tree for that matter?
A decision matrix is a matrix explaining how you'll go about making decisions when they come up. So it's a pre-agreement, which is different than a tree. And then a cascading messages framework is how you communicate decisions out after they've been made. Okay.
I like this one. Lainey, I think this last one speaks to yours. Figure out who's undoing decisions after the meeting. Wait a minute, we decided this. Who just undid that? Is there anything out here that can be grouped together? I see that somebody's been doing some grouping already. And by the way, just because something's grouped doesn't mean it has to stay there. If you disagree with that, if you feel like, well, this isn't really part of that, we can pull them apart again.
Do you think meeting closing ritual and send out meeting recap after could be?
Any thoughts?
Or are they separate? Like, I guess a ritual is like in the session.
And here we're after, are they related? So it's in the session versus after the session, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to categorize everything. We're going to do another weighted dot vote. This time you've only got 6. And so whichever one you think, let's put it this way. Which one of these would you say is most feasible? Okay, so which one of these is most likely to work? Going back to our initial problem statement, what solutions might work for being unclear about decisions? I'd like you to vote on which of these would you say are most feasible, most likely to work. You can put all your votes on one idea, or you can spread them around.
And you're so quiet.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. If you're speaking right now, I can't hear you. Right. So let's see how we did. Survey says we got a tie for first. Be clear on the decision-making process up front. Along with that, who's got the D, better context for instructions, and sending the purpose, process, outcomes up front. Cool. Thank you very much. All right, that's the demo that we wanted to share with you today. Thank you very much for your time. We would love to get your questions, feedback, any roses, buds, thorns, anything that you saw that we might want to be aware of. Is there anything else out there that you've seen that overlaps this?
I know of a lot of tools that overlap this, but I haven't seen this fun AI generator feature before. So I would love to get when you think you're ready, and if you think you're ready now, that'd be great. We'd love to add you to the list. But we did started in a while ago a blog post about breaking down this exact technique in different kinds of software for different kinds of audiences, starting in 2015. So I haven't updated it in a couple years because I was like, why?
Yeah,
It's just
there's a
kind of
lot
fun.
that's coming out pretty quickly, isn't there? So
But
Yeah, I mean, I think that the product's pretty ready and we have lots of people using it, and it's I think there's a lot of overlap with some of the other tools, and that, you know, partly because it's a similar problem space, but the solution is, I think, quite different than you know, I'm looking at the article right now, and like, you know, most people are generally using nothing. That is the first thing, right? And then the second order is that most people are using a Google Doc. And the third is like something like a whiteboard. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of what we're trying to go after, is trying to make, you know, more, trying to get people to not use nothing, you know, by making it really simple, by making the design really easy to use, and it's just one click, and you can just start these things. So you can be in the middle of a meeting and just pull one up very easily. Yeah. But yeah, would
so
love to be included.
definitely next month we're doing a session with Storms, which has been building on this kind of idea for about 8 years.
Yeah.
And they're on version 3. So they have their founder, and actually we've integrated with them in the past. So their founder will be there. He's also a master facilitator. So he'll talk about his journey of doing this both as a software endeavor and as a facilitator. But I would be curious to hear from everybody here, because I know there are a number of you who are facilitators. The situations where you want something like this, and the situations where, versus the times when you want the group to like surface the ideas about their problems or whatnot, but maybe taking them down this road is going to lead you on a path that isn't going to get you to the result you need. Like, how do you think about when to break out these techniques?
Strikes me that this would be a really good way to build engagement with hybrid meetings or Zoom meetings. Just my experience in this demo has had me much more engaged than a lot of webinars that I listen to and whatnot. And I just really noticed that. And I think that, if they have that immediate, whether they can do it on their phone, whether they can do it like we did here with putting the links in. I thought the positive engagement portion of that was probably the biggest value that I saw.
That's awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah.
Elise, I have a thought about to answer your question, but I've been talking a lot, so I don't want to take up anybody else's airtime if somebody else has an idea. Okay, I'll just go for it. So, so I mean, if we look at this as your kind of your classic divergent, right, and then refining, and then a convergent process, right, where we're going from a problem statement to an outcome. I mean, I think in order to do this, first you have to frame it properly. You really have to set the table. And so this would be where you would, for example, say, okay, here's the outcome. Here is the decision-making process. You're explicit about it. Here's the agenda. Here's the ground rules. Here's the introductions to the people that are there. Is all of that place setting that would come first. To really create a container of trust so that you can actually do this work, right? It's not to say that you could just jump into something like this without that important place setting. Anyway, that's how I think about it. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. I think there are also times where we can be tempted to engage groups and ask for all of the ideas because we want the engagement. right? We want them to pay attention. We want them involved. But when it's comes to mind in that way, I want them engaged. I want them to pay attention. We've slipped into something paternalistic, and not necessarily something that's about, we value these ideas because we're going to use them.
Right.
We, these people's input is actually critical to our joint success, and we're going to listen to it. We're gonna. So there can be times where input comes out and we say, oh, that was great and that was fun and engaging, and then we ignore it completely and go on and do whatever it was we're going to do anyway. That can be really tricky. So
Yeah, I'm with you, Elise. If you don't really want the input from people, don't ask for it, because they'll come away with a negative perception. The thing that I did like about this was how quickly we were able to eliminate a lot of extraneous things and get down to a specific decision. I thought that was kind of valuable too, but I get what you're saying.
Let me do one more sketch, because it always, I get concerned when I hear my colleagues that hit this particular obstacle, and to me this is an easy one. This is part of the contracting that we do at the very beginning. Nilay has heard me do this a dozen times, but this is something that I do with absolutely every single one of my clients. I ask them, I said, look, what kind of meeting is this? And I say, there's really just 4 kind of meetings out there. There are the tells, where we're directing or informing or we're teaching. There's the sells, where the leader's got an idea and he wants to bring people on board with him. He's going to dial into everybody's favorite radio station, WIIFM. What's in it for me? He's going to talk about the benefits. He wants people to get on the bus. There's a consult. And by the way, this is a lot of the meetings that I do, which is really, you could call these listening sessions. This is about getting advice and feedback. This is like, here's my idea at the 30,000 foot view, but show me what I'm missing. And then finally, there's the co-create, where you've got individuals that come in together as equals who share in the idea generation and in the decision making, and then ultimately the accountability for making this happen. They share in that responsibility. So this tool, Pathspace, is really designed for a co-create type experience, right? If you're just going to take people's ideas and then go off and do something else, call it what it is. It's a listening session. It's a consulting session. Tell me what I don't know, and ultimately I'm the one that makes the decision here. So anyway, again, Pathspace, it's really designed for that presumptive, we are going to share in the decision-making responsibility and accountability for making it happen. By the way, credit where credit is due. This comes from Peter Senge. It's derived from the 5th discipline.
Yeah, and the thing that I would add is just like most tools, it's like, it is only as good as the person who's in the hand of, who's using it. And by no means are we building something that is gonna be great for every situation or anything like that, So yeah, I really think it's for that co-create, for that diverge, for that converge. Yeah, and if you want something simple, like, you can just break it out. Obviously, the tool will get more complex. You can add more things. You can, we're going to add matrices pretty soon. So you can kind of, instead of after voting or before voting, you can put something on a 2x2 really quickly. So do a lot of the whiteboard things without the kind of the whiteboard infinite canvas, where you have to kind of teach people how to use it.
Isn't Kevin, isn't that a 2x2? Sort of. It's a swirly 2x2, but isn't it sort of a 2x2?
It's complex. That would be the short version of that one.
Yeah.
So we've got just 1 minute left in our official time, and everybody's welcome to hang out and if they want to ask more questions and whatnot. But we like to end our sessions here in the meeting innovation community by making sure we capture what the key value was. So if you want to either speak or in the chat, if you could quickly add the one key thing you're taking away from your time here together, that would be enormously valuable for our hosts, and something we can put it also at the front when we share the recording for others. So what is the one the one key value you're taking away from our session today? I was looking for a great chat prompt, but I don't have one handy. Jamie says it's an agile tool that'd be useful in meeting planning. Yeah, absolutely. Brian says, thank you for all the feedback. I love that, Lanny. Are you in a place where you can speak yet? That's a cool observation.
Yes, sorry, I am now. I've been walking on my commute to work, so I couldn't really participate, but I was listening intently all the way through. And Nilay had sent me a link to this, but I've not had a chance to really explore it. But it, you know, in a world where AI is starting to become more prominent, I do think this provides a different perspective. And in the right context, it could be very useful. You know, I think about working with, you know, new graduates who perhaps, you know, are scared to speak up. And, you know, this gives people an opportunity to say something that, or prompt their thinking and make it a bit more safe.
Yeah, we didn't talk about really the power of anonymity with this one. And early on, we were thinking about, well, do we want to have this traceable back to the source? And I actually encouraged Nilay not to do that, just so that you could decouple the idea from the source and overcome some of the groupthink, some of the power dynamics that you see in live meetings.
Lots of things there in the chat about loving some anonymity and the tool. So very cool.
Yeah, well, would love for all of you to try it out. It's totally for free. You know, just go to pathspace.com and it's just kind of one click, and nobody needs to create an account. You don't need to sign up. Your participants don't need to sign up. So yeah, would love for you all to use it, and please feel free to send us feedback. Yeah.
All right. And then in general, what to expect going forward. I'll post the video and the recording in the community later. And there are more events coming. And then for my friends where afternoons are better / Australian mornings, if you wish to help get groups together or host something, we would love to do more things in these time zones. So let us know. Thank you. Oh, I like the clapping audience. Although that one guy looks so bored.
Thank you very much.
Glad you made it, Sherry.
And like the guy in the front, that's me.
Good to see you, Elise.
Thank you.